Okay, first, the setup. The easiest way to do this process is to use a drawing board. A table works just as well, but to line up your papers right next to each other with them on the bottom edge so that they stay straight. And using a T-square, a ruler works just fine if you don't have a T-square, but the T-square makes it especially easy because you can hook the edge of your T-square on the edge of the drawing board or on the edge of the table, which makes sure that your line stays straight. So, just point of interest there. Now, notional space box. This here, not the notional space box. We make the notional space box by finding the very top edge, which is the tip of the helmet, the very bottom edge, which actually happens to be on this line, and the very side edges of the object. So whatever it is, if you're doing a still life, if you're drawing, it really doesn't matter what it is, find the edges of it. So I've lined up my ruler, my straight edge, or my T-square in this case, with that top point there. And what I'm actually going to do this time, because it saves time, you can do this with measuring or just run it across like this. So I'm going just straight across, and now I'll be able to make my box right here. At the bottom, I'm going to go straight across. Now, for example, this works because what if you said you wanted to only draw, just this part of the knight? You didn't want to do the legs or the sword. You just wanted to, you could make your notional space box end here, and you could make it much, much simpler to work with. The edge of the notional space box is going to come out to the edge of the gauntlet here, up to there. But the important thing to remember is that it has to touch the outermost edges. Whatever it is, it has to touch the outermost edges. Now let's measure for the width. We've got the proper length because we drew across, but you could measure for that too. And it's 4 inches wide. So I'm going to measure in 1 inch from here. So I'm just measuring 1 inch from the edge of my drawing paper so that I can make this line straight. I'm measuring 2 spots so that the line is straight. Now I'm going to measure out 4 inches because that's what this width is. 1 here, another here, flip to the edge, straight line. Alright, now I have the exact size, the exact width, the exact height. Exact width, exact height, and that's what I'm really aiming for. Now, I want to show you this measure across trick for finding the, well, okay, back up, envelope. We've got to do the envelope first. So the envelope, now you had your envelope kind of like up here. You had space between the figure and the envelope lines, and that makes it harder to use. It sort of complicates things more. So what you want to do to the envelope is you want to actually find the edges. So again, the edge of the gauntlet here, the edge of the helmet here, and line them up so your ruler is touching the edge of the figure itself, okay? Because this is what's going to give you the ability to make really precise measurements. If you're off, if you're offset, if you've got space in between it, it's kind of like, it's just not helpful at all, really. So line up your ruler with the outermost edges here. This is going to give you more spaces you can make kind of objective measurements from. So then coming down to here, where the gauntlet kind of intersects that, down to where the edge of the leg is here. Now I'm going to go across this because it's kind of not very important. What I'm trying to do is frame in the shape of the figure. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm not going to try to get that guy in. I'm just going to go, because it's not really important. And I'm going to come up to this little elbow point right there. And each time I'm overshooting my notional space box, because what that does is that creates a point. So think about this like graphing. We want to find points, one where it intersects, because then we can make rational measurement observations. Because once I measure for these points, then I can see where everything intersects. So the set point is actually right there. Now you can measure with your ruler. So you've got objective lines here, here. You can measure with your ruler or do the thumb and tip of the pencil trick. Measure twice. So this is like carpentry. Measure twice, cut once. This is, you just always measure twice because it's going to, you're going to inevitably make errors. It's just human nature. We don't get things objectively right the very first time. So lining up my thumb here with that dot, that point, tip of my ruler or tip of my pencil is right here. Okay, so I'm good there. Tip of my pencil here. Now I'm going to make that dot here, and then I'm going to double check. 1, 2, good. And so now I've found these points, and so I'm going to find these points, and then I'll be able to connect them, drawing these envelope lines in. So again, use your ruler if you want to, especially for the longer ones. I'm measuring from the bottom of the notional space, and I'm measuring up to this first dot here, and I'm going to flip that around so that it's a little bit easier. Okay, oh look at that. I always like it when it comes in here. So that dot is right here at 4.5. Okay, 4.5. Then I'm just going to get that second one there. It's just slightly above. I always mark on my ruler just because it's an easier way to sort of keep track of what I'm doing when I have these in-between ones, if it's not like a nice round clear number there. So I'm just going to make all these dots real quick. That's 1.5. So I'm measuring from the notional space box. That is 2 1/8. Make sure you're lining up. So this is not terribly dissimilar to math here, or geometry. Make sure you're using your ruler so that you're lining up your end lines. You know, you're not sometimes doing it here and sometimes doing it here, or overshooting it at all. So now I can connect these lines. Lining up my ruler, run the line, line up my ruler, run the line, and then let's get these guys over here. Okay, that one is slightly less than 3.5. And 3 3/4. Double check that one. That one's off. So then you can also double check measurements against other ones. So here I'm going to measure this in-between space here, because I keep getting that wrong. I'm off by, my little marks are off each time. This is why I always say to check and double check, because it's sort of a, make sure that you can be as accurate as possible. It's why this takes time, you know, why it's not a process that we rush through. But this process of measuring and measuring again and measuring again, it's not just measuring for the sake of measuring, it's training your eye so that the longer you do this, the more you do this, just the more accurate you get. And then you get to a point where you don't even really need to measure quite so much. Your eye will just catch it automatically. So now I have my exact notional space box, my exact envelope, and right here as well.